Welcome everybody to this year's ATM Aviation Sessions. I'm John Strickland from JLS Consulting, and I'm delighted to say that we have a really special guest today with us. And the guest I'm talking about is His Excellency Akbar Al Baker, Chief Executive of Qatar Airways and the Qatar Airways Group. Akbar, welcome to the ATM virtual session.
Thank you.
And good to see you. Just hope next time it's in person, because it's been quite some time since we've met. And a lot of water under the bridge. I don't know if that's the right expression for an airline, or air through the skies, you could say. But a number of challenges, of course. And I know you are not a stranger to challenge. You've been at the helm of the airline since its outset 25 years ago. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But we've really had a big run of challenges in recent years, and some indeed for Qatar in particular. I'd like to look at that with you for a few moments, because you could say the test of management is not how a business runs or succeeds in the normal times or the good times, but what it does and how it responds to the most challenging conditions. So if we could look first of all, Akbar, that you found yourself in the really challenging position of the blockade, which ended up lasting for 3.5 years and overlapped indeed the COVID crisis, which enveloped the world. How did you react in that situation? Because you certainly didn't let it defeat you, and you managed to keep the airline running despite the restrictions on operation that you could actually undertake.
Quite frankly, it is just because of sheer determination for us to stay in our business. And in Qatar Airways, we are prone to challenges, and we have always taken it very successfully. During the blockade, we managed to find alternate destinations, alternate routes, additional business. We grew our fleet size, we grew our network, and we were never coaxed into backing down. When it came to pandemic, it was already a good experience with what happened during blockade. And we took the challenge of not stopping our airline and shutting our airport, though we reduced immensely the number of airplanes that was in operation before the pandemic, and reduced drastically the destinations. But what we did is we found other ways of doing business. When we see all these hundreds of aircrafts that are grounded, we found a way to use them to transport cargo, because there was suddenly a huge demand for medical supplies, transportations of critical medical equipment, food, and so on and so forth. So we then started ramping up our operation, and then we went from 33 destinations back to now 140 destinations. We even during the pandemic opened new destinations where we saw there was passenger flow. But what important thing we did was to take people home. When all the other airlines chickened out, grounded airplanes, tried to save cash, leaving their passengers stranded all over the world, Qatar Airways went to their aid, and we were immensely recognized by many countries for helping their citizens to transport them to their homes, to their loved ones. And in addition to this, we were one of the only airline in the world that within a very short period of time gave nearly $1.9 billion US worth of refunds to people. We also show flexibility, where we told passengers that they can keep the tickets for an extended period of nearly 2 years. We let people to keep their frequent flyer points without getting it expired, extended the memberships. So we did a lot of things just to let the people to know that Qatar Airways is with them at good times and at bad times. You know, when a real airline, a real entity is recognized when they are there for people when they need them, not only for good days. And today, we have established our brand as an airline that is there for its passengers.
Well, that approach, Akbar, I mean, I think it was not only a really positive thing from a point of view of, as you said, the response in the bad times for customers who were really in need to be able to get home, to be repatriated, and to start routes which you'd never actually operated before. But I guess you could say it's also an investment in the future, because many people maybe flew on Qatar Airways for the first time and went through Hamad International for the first time. So it was a good opportunity to actually show what you had to offer to people who didn't know, who maybe, and indeed quite likely will become future repeat customers.
Several million people traveled for the first time on Qatar Airways. And this was a huge marketing benefit to us, because they saw the product and recognized that we have the best product of any airline in the world. But at the same time, we also were the #1 airline, international airline, vis-a-vis the ASK of any other international airline in the world. We're also the #1 cargo operator. At one time, we were carrying nearly 9.3% of the world's air freight. So you can see that we really established our brand very strongly during this pandemic. It's not because we wanted to establish our brand, and this is why we did what we did. We did to serve humanity. We did to serve people. We did to stand by our passengers who expected that from us, that we will not leave them stranded when push comes to shove.
And just on the cargo side, Akbar, you have a large fleet of Boeing 777-300 ERs, and I think that aircraft has really proved itself, hasn't it, in terms of cargo credentials, because I had not appreciated just how much cargo that aircraft could carry in the absence of passengers. I mean, 60 plus tons, I think, at a peak, depending on weight and volume. And as you said, you mobilized that fleet to very good effect very quickly to perform that task of carrying that very large share of world freight.
As a matter of fact, 777-200 freighter carries 110 tons.
Right.
Its payload, not 60 tons. I think you're talking about the Airbus A330.
I think this is the 300 ER in a passenger configuration. But yes.
Okay. In a passenger configuration, it is different. Yes, we carry as much as the number you stated. But what we did is we converted 777-300 passenger aeroplane to carry cargo, and we were doing a lot more than the 40 tons you're talking about.
Oh, absolutely. And also the diversity of your fleet. I'll come back to fleet in a moment, but you were able to use those aircraft to good effect, because you range from narrow-bodied aircraft such as Airbus 320s, 321s, through to, as you said, the size of even the 380, which was largely grounded during the pandemic, but you're using opportunistically now. So that's been a really positive use of your aircraft assets, I guess.
Yes, we had to return aircraft to the lessors during the peak of the pandemic, but then we took them back, and we were not intending to start operating the Airbus A380. We took impairment on all the 10 aircraft. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we have to bring them back to service due to the fact that we have a large number of Airbus A350 that are grounded, and we are so desperate for capacity to fuel the huge growth in passenger numbers Qatar Airways is facing over this period.
We'll come back to that point in a moment. And your financial year, I think, has just finished, Akbar, 2021, running into the beginning of 2022. Obviously, your results are not yet published. All airlines have lost phenomenal amounts of money. The industry has lost more than ever before through this pandemic period. Can you tell us, ahead of the results coming out, I guess, in a few months, has the year been a significantly improved one as we seem to be getting more on top of the pandemic?
The year has been the strongest in the history of Qatar Airways. We will announce a very handsome result once our audit is over, because we have just closed our financial year precisely 12 days ago. What is important for us is that we showed how resilient the airline is, how flexible the airline is, and that we are not going to slow down or shrink the company. We will take every single opportunity we get to expand our business. Our results will show that everything Qatar Airways did was correct and to the benefit of both the airline and its passengers.
And we have a new challenge right now. We have conflict in Europe. That's affecting a number of airlines, not least in terms of an additional impact on fuel prices due to nervousness in the market there. But some airlines rerouting flights around Ukrainian airspace, others not able to use Siberian routings for flights, for example, from Europe to Asia. Are you affected significantly by this current conflict, or are you managing to steer clear, or even see some passengers come your way who perhaps otherwise would not necessarily do so?
I don't think there is any airline that will not be affected by any kind of upheaval anywhere in the world. Unfortunately, we have to now fly extra time to avoid the Russian airspace going to the United States, because we are co-sharing with American Airlines. The rising fuel costs, which is impacting everybody. Also, whenever there is such calamities, man-made or natural calamities anywhere in the world, passengers still want to fly. They still want to go from A to B. And this is exactly what we do. I know that there is a huge stress on many carriers in Europe and in Asia, because the airspace over the Soviet Union was very important for all these airlines to go from A to B across their airspace. And this is bringing a lot of stress on those carriers. And we are there to help those carriers who cannot serve their full network due to the conflict in Ukraine.
Just touching back a related point on COVID, because a lot of Asian markets are still closed or very reduced. I mean, China in particular for international traffic is still currently closed. Do you feel optimistic that we are going to see that part of the world opening up? I mean, if we look at what IATA says, that they expect it to probably be the last to come back to a level of normality.
China is a huge market for every single airline in the world, and this includes us. We don't know when they will open up. We don't know how long the lockdown will last. We don't know how long will all these restrictions continue in China. But at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the Chinese authorities to open or close their country, and we will oblige whatever decision is made by the authorities in the People's Republic of China.
And I guess, as you say, given the importance of that market, that your very diverse network and fleet, that you are being agile again in redeploying capacity that you normally would have sent to China. It's not that capacity sitting on the ground. You're using it in other ways that are producing at least some compensation for lack of market access there.
Yeah, China, like I said earlier, is one of the most important markets for anybody, with 1.4 billion people and a huge and growing middle class. It's a huge potential for business for any airline. However, we are doing 2 flights a week to China, and we restrict passengers going in. So the aircraft only goes with freight in its belly, but we come back with passengers. Unfortunately, with what is happening now in the lockdown, especially in the commercial capital of People's Republic of China, which is Shanghai. It's affecting our business because cargo is not moving due to the fact that there is a lockdown in the city. And of course, there are a lot of new restrictions to impede the spread of the pandemic in the 2 other destinations that Qatar Airways operates.
And more broadly, and the last point in relation to the virus, Akbar, you've counselled caution over the last months, indeed the last year or so, about this virus. I mean, it's been not just a shock to us, but all of us who are not epidemiologists have learned to become seemingly amateur experts about this topic, but you've counselled caution that we should expect other waves. We shouldn't get too overconfident about restoring normality. Now, again, the market, led by IATA's forecast, is predicted to return to normal volumes by 2024. But do you still remain cautious? I know you're also positive about vaccinations that have been taking place more widely.
I think IATA is right. There will be a full rebound by 2024, maybe 2025. We still don't know. We hope that there will not be another mutation similar to Omicron, and that the business will come back with the way it is coming back now. But we always have to keep our guard. We need to keep our fingers crossed. And at the same time, we need also to be prepared that even though the pandemic will become epidemic, it's still there. And the second thing is the inflation that is going to happen around the world, the cost of commodities, the cost of supply chain that will now affect due to the conflict in Ukraine, and the rising cost of energy. Because this is all a vicious circle. Mm-hmm. And once the cost of energy rises, then the cost to carry your goods rises, the cost to carry you as a passenger rises. So all this also could start a second recession in our industry. I hope I'm wrong, but we need to be prepared. We need to be on our guard to anything that could happen over the next 12, 24 months. We also don't know if this conflict will go beyond the borders of Ukraine. We still don't know. Everything is so fluid. I hope that there will be a resolution to any conflict, because there is losses of life, innocent life, many times, and that our industry is not too much affected by any conflict.
I share your thoughts on all of that, Akbar, and on the particular point of inflationary pressures. Of course, they work both sides, as you said, in supply chain for the airline industry itself, both in demand and cost for fuel, but pressures on consumers in terms of their ability to afford to travel. All the evidence I'm seeing, certainly looking from a European perspective, is we should have a pretty good summer. We've heard a lot about pent-up demand in markets that are away from conflict and away from Asia. But I guess, as you said, we can't predict how that will play out over time. People have long wanted to travel in the numbers they used to, but the question of affordability will be a big one to track.
Don't forget that United States has given inflation figures. And this is the highest inflation they had in 40 years.
Absolutely.
So you can see that the writing is getting on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Well, one element, I said I'd come back to it, that is important in managing all of this is having the right aircraft fleet for an airline and the right network, and indeed the ability to flex it as and when necessary and take opportunities to avoid problems. I mentioned already you've got a very diverse fleet and a very modern fleet. I mean, you've always ordered the state-of-the-art aircraft where you've seen that those have been right for you. Let me ask you about that in commercial terms, but also there's a very public legal case going on right now related to part of your fleet with Airbus, challenges with the A350 paint affecting some aircraft in your fleet. I know you can't say very much because it is a live legal dispute, but tell me what you can about the background to that dispute and what the likely follow-on is going to be, as far as you can, Akbar.
I can't say too much, John, on this subject because we are in English courts with our litigation against Airbus. I know that they are brushing the fact under the carpet that it is a paint and a cosmetic issue. And you know very well as a journalist that they were claiming that it is only affecting Qatar Airways aircraft, and then it became some other airlines, and now it is more than the paint. And there is a solution. We are here to have our aeroplanes flying. Our regulators is concerned about the safety aspect because it is not a paint. And I don't want to say anything more. We will let the courts to decide what is the real problem with the aeroplane. And I think I will leave it at that. What is very disappointing to me is that we bought this state-of-the-art aircraft to serve our passengers and our airline. And to see 22 aircraft up to now and rising, being grounded by our regulator, something beyond our control. And we are just waiting for an outcome to our problem.
And other airlines have acknowledged they have had similar issues. And I think recently I saw also that Tim Clark of Emirates, who has these aircraft on order but not yet in the fleet, has also been clear with Airbus that he expects a resolution to the problem before he would consider to take delivery of his own aircraft in his fleet in the coming couple of years.
Every airline CEO will want a resolution of this because they're concerned. They bought this very expensive aeroplane and they want its value to hold, and they want that nothing should impede the operation of the aeroplane like we do.
Because if the problem can be addressed, well, it needs to be addressed satisfactorily. As you said, it's a state-of-the-art aircraft. It should be one of the lead aircraft of the future, along with the 787 of the aircraft in its class. The size, the scale, the efficiency. It should be both what you need as an operator and what passengers would want from a travel point of view as well.
Yeah, but I have to operate that aeroplane in a very safe environment that is certified by my regulator.
Now, around that dispute, there are also other elements. I'm not here trying to get into aspects of that, but you had on order a sizable number of A321 narrow-bodied aircraft. That order has, if I'm correct, been cancelled by Airbus and is also part of a dispute. What I'm just trying to get at there, Akbar, you have now ordered some Boeing 737 MAX. Do you see that maybe as a substitute for the 321 in the context of that dispute, or is this additional capacity for additional purposes, looking on the narrow-bodied side of the fleet?
The order of the 737 MAX has no relation to our requirement for the Airbus A321neo. We have bought those for our subsidiary company. We have not bought them for replacing the 321 neos, and we feel that cancelling the 321s unilaterally by Airbus is illegal, and we will let have confidence in the courts in the UK, and we will let the court to decide on that issue.
Well, I hope that it is resolved quickly and acceptably.
Every single customer of Airbus should understand that Airbus is using its market dominance in the single aisle market to get their way with their customers, to try to bully them.
Just looking at on the wide body side again, Akbar, you also have orders in place for Boeing's 777X, an aircraft which itself is not yet in service. It has its own delays, I think, exceeding 2 years. It looks like it's going to be an amazingly efficient aircraft and a large capacity aircraft, approaching the capacity which 747s or 380s would previously have offered, but with a much better economic performance, being a twin. How do you see that aircraft at the moment in terms of delays in its progress towards service?
We are disappointed at the delay of this aeroplane. We were looking forward to introducing that aircraft this year into our fleet. Contractually, actually, it is supposed to be last year. And we are anxiously waiting for Boeing to start delivering those airplanes to us, because they are our replacement airplane for the 777-300ERs that we operate today. It is it has a larger volume, it is more fuel efficient, it has a longer range. So we are really anxiously looking after waiting for the delivery of this airplane.
Well, do you think the manufacturers, Boeing and Airbus, maybe have got simply too much on their plate? They have a range of new models. They've now been hit as you have as an airline by the consequences of a pandemic. Do you think they would have been better to keep to a smaller product range, or is it simply that they've got the right range, but they need to simply deliver all of those as per plan?
I'm not there to speak on behalf of both the manufacturers. They know what is the market. They know what type of aeroplanes to make. And as an airline CEO, we see which is the best fit for our operation. And this is the basis we buy airplanes with.
And looking at the use of the fleet, you already mentioned about a number of destinations you started, some on a temporary basis for repatriation, some to be agile and test new markets during the pandemic. Is that going to remain your philosophy? A lot of airlines are using the word agility, but it would seem to me some are more agile than others. You're particularly agile in adding new destinations. Do you think you've learned some unexpected things in the process of this pandemic? I mean, you probably recall myself, I'm a former network planner many years ago, and then we were always looking at history about what had worked, what could we draw comparison with. We couldn't easily make decisions looking to the future, but airlines have had to do that now on the basis maybe of not the normal information, but the level of success has been pretty high. Do you think this more agile, forward-looking approach is here to stay?
John, since you were a network planner, a lot of things has changed since.
Has changed. Yeah.
There is a lot of technology available for us to forecast. There is a lot of data that is available to us, which is automated. So it is now very easy, unlike your days, to predict passenger flows and demand. And this is the basis on which we tailor our network.
Well, I think this digital information now, by being able to see passenger intent and searches, it's not only fascinating, but as you said, it's essential and allows, I think, a much greater degree of prediction for airlines, both in where to fly and the pricing. I just wish I'd had those tools available when I was a young network planner all those years ago. But you're expanding into markets where you've already been present, but more so, for example, Africa. I noticed you've added quite a number of destinations there. And to me, it remains an interesting continent in that it's neglected by some and has its own challenges within its own land mass in terms of regulation and attitudes to liberalization. Do you still see that as a fertile area of future development for Qatar Airways?
Yes, this is why we are investing in Rwanda, both in the airline and the airport. We feel that Africa is lacking a robust airline network and requires a very strong airline in order to serve the huge young population of Africa. It's a large continent and very poorly served by international players.
And you mentioned reinvestment there specifically in Rwanda, which I know is a phenomenal growth market, very dynamic. Yvonne Makolo, the CEO, an excellent airline leader. Can you just update us on that investment? Is that now in place and complete, or is it still a work in progress?
Well, it's not yet fully in place, but it's on the way to be concluded. Yes.
No, it's a very dynamic country. I think the president of the country.
It is the location that was very important for us, the stability in the country, and of course the second attractive thing was the size of the African market. Yes,
and I think Rwanda as a country has the aspiration to be, the president has said before, the Singapore of Africa. So it's certainly a very dynamic market. Let's look a little bit about product developments as well, Akbar. You've always been a leading airline there. I remember you personally showed me the Q Suite when it was new at the ATM, I think 2016, just as it was being rolled out. And as we were saying, many more people have been able to experience the Qatar product. Are you still pushing forward with innovation? I'd be surprised if you said you're not.
No, we are continuously innovating in Qatar. We will never stop. You see the Q Suite that is already now the favorite of a lot of people who fly with Qatar Airways. we have a modified Q suite because, we constantly upgrade our product.
Yes.
And we never sit back on our laurels. We always like to have something new, both the soft product and the hard product. And this is what we are doing. So in the 777X and in our later 350s, if they resolve the problems and we take them, we will have new Q suites installed in them. So, and in the narrow bodies, we also have new innovations. In the 787-9, we have new innovation. So we continuously keep improving our product. Yes, we will never stop.
And I remember the Q Suite, it seems it was ahead of its time, the level of privacy that it offers, because my own personal hypothesis is that people traveling are going to people always wanted space, but now in this era of pandemics and concern in people's minds, even more so desire to have space and privacy, and particularly if you're traveling with, not just with colleagues, but maybe in a family group. And of course, that offers exactly that. So I would guess you could expect strength and demand for that cabin across a wide range of routes.
Sorry, I didn't understand very clearly your question.
Yeah, I'm saying that I think because of people's desire for greater privacy and space has always been an issue, but I think privacy and space and distance from other customers, the Q Suite offers exactly that. And I guess we're going to see a stronger demand for that cabin as we go forward.
Yes, you see, once you introduce something to the passenger, they always want it and they want something better. And this is where the art of innovation in Qatar Airways comes to play. We always know that once we have introduced a product, then we survey the passenger to see what better we can do. And we look at their feedback in a very, very positive manner.
And in terms of the type of customers themselves, do you see a changing mix? There's a lot of discussion now about, we know that visiting friends and relations and leisure traffic has led the recovery. There is concern amongst some airlines that business travel, and specifically business travel in premium cabins, may be permanently reduced because companies have learned that technology can do the job in terms of some meetings. But equally, we're hearing about premium leisure growth. How do you see in the business cabins the type of customer?
I don't think you're right. I think the business customers will rebound very quickly. Mm-hmm. The business travel will pick up very rapidly because a lot of people that are in business prefer not to sit, in front of a screen. And negotiate and discuss and expand their business, but they want to have the personal touch. I'm not very comfortable now sitting in front of the camera giving you the interview. I would have preferred to be in person. So you see, and also people, people are longing to go back into an aeroplane and go on holiday. And this is where you see the rebound. This is where you see that the increase in flights are happening. So I don't think that it is right. It is a necessity for the time being that people have to conduct business, virtually. But soon, once we have a handle on the pandemic, people will start traveling, and people will start traveling in a big manner. People who haven't seen their business associates for over 2 years.
No, I agree with you, Akbar. I mean, I've done limited travels myself. I've seen some of my own colleagues and clients for the first time in 2 years, and it's just far more preferable than to sit here on the screen, which makes it very, very impersonal. In terms of moving on a little bit in terms of your investment strategy, I remember when we've talked about this before, you've always been very clear that Qatar would invest in high quality airlines. You wouldn't pick random companies to invest in, and you've indeed done that. Can you just update us on the key ones that are in the portfolio right now and how you see things for them? Because everybody is challenged in a different way. IAG is the one that I'm closest to being here in Europe, and I've always seen that as the leading airline group in Europe. Are you still optimistic about the future for them as a group? And let me ask you within that question, how do you see things going for BA? We're getting a lot of tough publicity right now with some challenges here in the UK.
Unfortunately, British Airways did not do enough or adequate investments in their IT systems. And they now also need to know, the commercial team needs to know that it is a new norm of conducting business. They need to get out and get real, know that all those cost cutting done in the past on the IT and other sections of the airline is now causing the stress to them. And now there will be a time for a lot of investments to get into speed with others like us and other competitors around their own home turf. It's important. British Airways is a very important economic tool for the United Kingdom. And so is Iberia for the Spanish people. We have full confidence in the rebound of IAG Group. And at the same time, we have good investment in other airlines, other good airlines. We have 5%, nearly just under 5% of China Southern, which is the largest airline in China. We have nearly 10% of Cathay. We have 10% of LATAM, and we will soon have a large stake in Rwanda Air. So we have good investments. We don't plan to do any future or further investments for the time being until we see how things play out after the pandemic. There will be opportunities, and we will look at it in a very positive way.
I mean, Cathay's long been the star airline, one of the star airlines of the Asian region. Do you think it is suffering as an airline more for political reasons than anything else? I mean, certainly Hong Kong, as part of China, has suffered again from lockdowns, but it's unbelievable to see that it's been flying as little as 2% of its normal output at some times recently. I understand it has good cash reserves, but can it rebound and claim back that crown that it enjoyed in the past?
Yes, Cathay is a very well-established airline. I don't think there is anything political in play. The only thing is that the management was not very decisive of how to continue, okay, not the full service, but a large part of the service. But also at the same time, they were not helped very much by the government in Hong Kong, the way they were treating the incoming passengers and the crew that were operating on those airplanes. But at the same time, you know, there is many ways to skin the cat. You could always base airplanes out and transfer passengers through the hub in Hong Kong without them entering the country and keeping the crew in a third country. It was not difficult. You know, we are in the same situation as Hong Kong. My country was also completely locked down for 2 months, but we continued. We were having huge numbers of passengers transferring from the airport. We took all the precautions that we needed to take. We were the first airliner to introduce full PPE. We were the first airliner to make mandatory mask and face shields and provide sanitize equipment to our passengers. We were the first airliner to purchase a Rockwell Collins disinfecting system for the airplanes, the intense UV lights to disinfect our airplanes. We brought robots to do the same at the airport. We introduced touchless counters and check-in areas. So we did everything in order to continue carrying our passengers in a safe environment. And if we can do it, I don't think there is any other airline, including Cathay, couldn't find innovative ways to continue operating. There was a time that we carried 10 times more passengers in a day than Cathay carried in the whole month. So you can see how much opportunity they lost during this period. I don't think there is anything political to that. It is only the business acumen of the people that run Cathay.
That's a very interesting comparison that you make there, Akbar. Just one other question relating to those investments. There's been a lot of discussion in business media here in Europe about IAG in the context of the UK's Brexit, whether they may be forced to split BA off as a British AOC licensed airline. Is that something that you have a view on? If BA was to be separated in any way, would you be more interested in further investment in it as a company, as opposed to being part of the IAG family as it is now?
John, we are a strategic investor in the company. We don't get involved in the running or the strategy of the company. And whatever it is, we have confidence in the product, and we will continue to stay a shareholder.
Right. And just one other question on partnerships, Akbar, which I find interesting and very positive. We've spoken in the past before about the challenging relationship between US carriers and the major Gulf carriers that are hub operators, yourselves, Etihad and Emirates. And in particular, the sensitivity that I saw there was we had American Airlines and yourselves being part of the One World Alliance, and really a difficult relationship in the past. That seems to have turned around 360 degrees to now being very positive, with, I think, if I'm not mistaken, even American Airlines now operating directly themselves into Doha or shortly to do so. Is that fair to say there has been a turnaround there, and now you're building able to build a positive relationship rather than the kind of confrontational approach that was taken in the past on the US side?
Look, I always mentioned in the past that I'm also ready to do business with devil if it is in the interest of both parties. And I've always been saying that in the peak of our disagreement with the American carriers, that there is opportunity for them to work. And during the period of President Trump, he took a very decisive move by bringing everybody to the table to negotiate face-to-face. And it was discovered that the whole exercise by certain vested interests was not to have competition for their passengers. And since that very important meeting attended by President Trump, the matter was resolved, and American Airlines, our One World partner, realized that there is a huge benefit to both sides to work together. And this is where the relationship started to evolve. And today we are a very strong partner, complementing each other's network and co-sharing with each other. And this is a success story. And we are now awaiting for regulatory approval to do a JV with them. We are waiting for the antitrust immunity to be processed in order for us to do a JV with them. So you can see that there is always a huge benefit when people come together and do business than wasting millions of dollars in lobbying and lawyer fees and advisors who take advantage of this kind of conflict, unnecessary conflict that could generate between companies.
Oh, it has to be the way to go, doesn't it, Akbar? If anything, lessons for humanity as a whole, I think, in what you described there, to work together and not against. Just looking at the broader market, Akbar, what do you see as the major trends going forward? We're talking about a period of major change in the industry brought on by COVID. Do you see any new business models emerging? Do you think that we're going to see a change in the number of players in the market, and also influenced by the new capability that the next gen aircraft offer?
You see what is going to happen is that there will be consolidation. Once the ramp up of passenger services takes place, there will be shortage of capacity. And I think, like I've always said, in every market, it will only be the survival of the fittest. And certainly in our market, you know who survived in the most strongest way was us, because we were fit for the purpose. We were flexible, we were agile, decision-making was fast, and the opportunity that is on the table was grabbed very quickly. It is all at the end of the day of how you perceive your business to grow and how determined you are to achieve them. I still think that there will be a lot of business that is enough to go around for everybody. So all this fuss of trying to stifle competition, using lame excuses of state aid, subsidy, all this nonsense that, they're still trying to reinvigorate is not going to work. When you look at state aid, what is all these billions that people got? What is it called? When you talk about, compensating entities to keep employees at work, what is that called? Isn't it called subsidy? What else it is called? So people should not brag about themselves of their sustainable business model when they themselves receive subsidies and state aid. If they were properly run airline, as they always brag about, then they should have had enough reserves not to ask for state aid or subsidies. So, what I'm trying to say, I have no problem with that. I mean, everybody could have at times needing the support of their government. But, they should not take things out of the context just because they don't want competition. I don't want to name airlines, but I would suggest that their executives spend more time for the betterment of their company than looking at other people and wasting their time on futile subjects, which they're not achieving anything with it.
Just a couple of questions for you on this point, Akbar. We see now Air India finally being privatized. India's a market that not only are you very active in, it could be an area of possible interest for future investment, not now. Would you be optimistic for Air India as the flag carrier of India under new management? I'm only asking because the market is there, but it's always been a very politicized, you could say a bit of a basket case. There's going to be new management, but it's complicated to fold in other companies as well at the same time. Quite a difficult job for whoever becomes a new CEO.
I'm very confident on Tata's ability to run an efficient and perfect organization. If you really go to history, Tata was the owner of Air India in the beginning.
They founded it. Yeah.
And now they have got it back. I'm sure they will invest, they will bring efficiency, and they will grow the airline. Air India has a huge potential. It is the national carrier of the largest democracy in the world. It is a country that has over 1.3 billion people, not properly connected to the outside world, lot of bureaucracy in air services and in regulations. And I think this all will be cleaned up with an entity, so there will be no more protection. Things will open up, and I'm sure Tata will do a very good job with Air India. I'm very confident. And I wish the chairman of Air India, who is a good friend of mine, all the best. And of course, Qatar Airways is ready to give him any support he wants to be successful.
Thanks, Akbar. We're coming close to time, so I just want to try to finish up with a couple of questions for you. Two important events that you are going to be hosting this year in the industry. You're going to be hosting the IATA AGM this summer with the Director General of IATA, a good friend of yours, Willie Walsh. and then secondly, the FIFA World Cup. Just asking you about IATA for a moment. You know, Willie, we both know Willie. He's a man of not an enormous experience, but enormous achievement. He doesn't shy away in the face of a challenge. Is IATA, and you know because you've been actively involved in the running of the organisation yourself, a particularly challenging organisation because it's such a broad church. It represents most of the world's industry, but so many different players, frequently with not all the same views. What's your feeling about that right now?
Look, I don't want to make any comment on the management of IATA and how things happen with Willie. Willie is a leader. He is a very efficient manager, and he has done very many positive changes in IATA, and I wish him a good luck. And it is up to the board of governors of IATA to give you a comment on that, not me. As far as we are concerned, both at the chair committee and the board of governors of IATA, we are very disappointed that we couldn't have the AGM in China. All of us was looking forward very much to go and have the AGM in China. But due to the current situation, it cannot take place. And the plan B was for any other member to come forward to have the AGM, because we wanted to have in person and not virtual. Mm-hmm. Because now we have been away for so long as a community, airline community. We wanted to come together more so than what happened in Boston. So I was one of the people that put forward as a plan B for the AGM, and thankfully the board of governors voted for it to have to take place in Doha as an alternate to Shanghai.
Oh, we look forward to get that going well in the summer, Akbar. And in terms of the football world, FIFA World Cup is coming at the end of the year, long awaited by the footballing community and by Qatar as host. Are you looking forward to that yourself in terms of what it represents for the airline, what it represents for Qatar, showcasing the product, adding extra capacity, moving capacity around to optimize the possibility to visit for fans?
Look, John, there is a huge interest of other airlines to operate both scheduled and charter flight during the FIFA season into Doha. We are very well prepared. We are looking forward to delivering the best FIFA experience to both the spectators and to the FIFA teams. We are well prepared. We have worked very hard for this tournament to be the most successful in its history. And, you know, with the interest of people that want to come here, the volumes of people that are showing interest gives us the feel that it will be a very successful event showcasing my beloved country, Qatar.
And will all the flights operate into Hamad International, or will you, in terms of capacity, need to draw on the old airport at all?
Yeah, you're right. We have completely refurbished the old airport. And so we will have two airports that will operate simultaneously to cater for the huge influx of people and, of course, departure of them.
Well, we look forward to some good competitive matches later in the year. Akbar, just to wrap up, and I must put one question, two questions if I could. One question because it's essential, and I know your credentials are high. We cannot leave our discussion without talking about the environment, because aviation has long been in the spotlight and never more so than now. And again, under Willie, IATA's committed to net zero by 2050. Do you want to say just a brief few words on that? I know Qatar is doing a lot. We've talked about the efficiency of the fleet, but you're doing much more than that, of course.
Yes, we are very committed to sustainable growth. You can see that we have a very young fleet, actually one of the youngest in the industry. We have always invested in fuel efficient airplanes, but you know, it cannot only come from the side of the airline. It is also to come from the OEMs. It needs to come from the aircraft manufacturers. It has to come from the engine manufacturer. It also has to come from the oil suppliers. They need to invest in sustainable aviation fuel. They are not getting the volumes so that they get the economies of scale. This is why the little SAF that is available is expensive. And we at IATA are pushing very strongly to all these industrial partners to come up with solutions. And that is why we have given a commitment for 2050.
I think SAF's a fundamental part of the success of delivering the target, isn't it, Akbar? And as you said, so much more needs to be done, both by politicians and by other industry partners in this process. I just want to ask you a final question, Akbar, a bit of a personal reflection. I mean, Qatar Airways is celebrating its 25th anniversary. You've been at the helm since the airline, as we know it, has been developed from very modest beginnings with only a few aircraft to the world-leading and award-winning airline it is today. Can I ask you, what are your happiest reflections on this 25-year period, and at the same time, maybe what are your frustrations over that time?
My happiest moment in this 25 years is that I have delivered to my country what was expected from me, to have the best airline in the world. And we have had it not only one time, but 6 times. And at the same time, we have also the best airport in the world now, which is giving a total passenger experience to one entity. The frustration is government restrictions and government regulations where they restrict rights to airlines that want to serve the traveling public of each of those countries. So just we hope that we will overcome that, and governments who are restrictive see that aviation plays a very vital part of their economic development, connects people, brings commerce and tourism to them, and generates revenue for them in the country. I am a huge supporter of having open sky policy in every country when it comes to the air services. That will be win-win for everybody, and most importantly, for their traveling passengers.
No, there's no doubt that is the case, Akbar. And at a personal level, after 25 years at the helm, any personal aspirations? You're not planning to call it a day and move on to other things? I sense you feel there's still more to do.
I am a soldier of my country. As long as I am needed here, I will stay as long as I'm fit and delivering what is expected from me.
Excellent. Well, Akbar Al Baker, Group CEO of Qatar Airways, Your Excellency, thank you very much for your time today. It's been generous. I appreciate your transparency on some quite challenging issues. I wish you good luck in the months ahead with these 2 key events, industry and sport, that you're hosting. And I hope that next time we speak and meet, it is indeed in person and not through the means of technology we're using today. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, John.